Have you ever found yourself in a job, business, or relationship longer than you knew you should be? Missed an opportunity because of fear of uncertainty? Or avoided a difficult money conversation for fear of someone else's emotional reactivity? In human design, those can be conditioned fears of the awareness centers. And once you understand those awareness centers, that can completely transform the way that you show up for career, business, and your relationship with money.
Welcome to Frequency of Self, your go-to resource for the practical application of human design in life, business, and relationships. If you're ready to experience lasting transformation, hit subscribe.
The awareness centers in human design are some of the most important centers to understand because these centers are all about different types of fear. The Ajna, the mental uncertainties, the spleen, the survival instinctual fears, and the solar plexus, the emotional fears. Now, fear itself is not the problem. The issue is when the fear becomes conditioned within each one of these centers that can drive us to make decisions that are not in alignment with career, relationships, and money. Today, we are going to break down the mechanics, how these fears might show up, and then the practical application to decondition these fears so you can move forward in complete alignment. Let's dive in. Part 1, the spleen, the ajna, and the solar plexus. The awareness centers are how we take in and filter information. The awareness centers are also associated with different types of fears. So the Ajna is the first awareness center we'll talk about. The Ajna is associated with mental anxieties and fears. The Ajna is designed to be conceptual. It takes in the information and it creates constructs around that information. It is also associated with opinions and mental pattern. There's a big difference between Ajna definition and no Ajna definition. When you have a defined Ajna, you are designed for certainty. You have a very consistent information of taking in and organizing the information and a very consistent mental framework. The undefined Ajna has no consistency. You're not really designed for certainty. You can see all sides of every situation. In fact, true false may be difficult for a lot of undefined Ajnas. Your thinking is very flexible. However, with the undefined center, it will amplify the other Ajna centers around it, really conditioning it, making it feel like it's designed for certainty, and that creates the fear of not knowing, of needing that mental certainty. The spleen is our second center. Now, this is survival-based instinctual awareness. The spleen is all about health and well-being, and it is instinctive in the now. The defined spleen is going to have consistent access to this intuition, this in-the-moment processing, and it's also an authority. So if you have splenic authority like I do, it really does lead to a lot of decision making. And those with splenic definition tend to have a consistent relationship with fear, meaning it doesn't necessarily override all of their decisions. There's a consistent intuitive awareness of what to fear, what not to fear, but it's always kind of in the background. The undefined or open spleen is inconsistent access with this intuitive in-the-moment awareness. Oftentimes, the undefined splenic fears are really amplification of the fears of those with defined spleens around them. The conditioning of the undefined center can be a fear of letting go of what is no longer health because it feels unsafe. And the third awareness center is the solar plexus. The solar plexus, when it's defined, is also the authority for about 50% of the population. So if you have a defined solar plexus, you automatically have emotional authority. Someone with a defined solar plexus requires more time. Those waves provide information, highs and lows of emotions, and those emotions help them find clarity. The undefined or open solar plexus does not have an emotional wave. They really experience emotions and the waves of emotions through the other because they amplify those emotions. Now, this can create a great fear of someone else's emotional reactivity, so fear of truth and confrontation or those hard conversations may be something that shows up a lot for, again, 50% of the population because 50% of us are undefined. Now, I'd like to hear from you and how you filter information. Do you have an undefined head, ajna, or solar plexus? What are the fears that show up for you and how do they show up? Drop it in the comments below. Part 2, awareness, career, business, and money. As we've done in the rest of this 5-part series, we need to talk about how these things show up and affect your career, business, and money. And we do this through the undefined centers. So when we're talking about this will not be from the lens of authority at all, because you have to have definition for it to be the authority. This is pure awareness. The Ajna center, the unaligned Ajna center is needing to know that mental certainty before you can move on. In your career, this may feel like unable to make a decision or finish a project because you don't yet have all the information. You're just not certain about it. In entrepreneurship, this might look like endless research or preparation before you decide which launching strategy is the one for you. With money, you might delay financial decisions because you're trying to eliminate every possible unknown before you can move on. In the aligned expression, you're not looking for mental certainty. You can take in all aspects and all sides of the information. You can bring it all in and then really sit with it, knowing you're not going to make a decision from your mind, but you're going to feel your strategy and authority and move on with ease. With an undefined spleen, it's amplifying the fear of letting go of something that is no longer healthy for you because the familiar feels more healthy than the unknown. In career, this might look like staying in a job long after you know it's no longer working for you. In business, it might look like a business offer, a model, or a client relationship has run its course and you know it, but you can't let go because it just feels too risky. With money, it might look like holding on to habits or sources of security that feel financially safe because they're familiar, but are no longer serving you and are actually holding you back. With the aligned expression, this doesn't mean you stop feeling fear, but you can sit with that fear in a way that gives you information, allows you to filter what's coming in as instinctual survival, and allow your, again, authority and your strategy to help you figure out where you need to let go so you can move forward. With the undefined solar plexus, the fear is emotional input coming in. Now you're amplifying the emotions, which can feel very large to someone who doesn't have that solar plexus definition. And that creates that fear of truth, of confrontation, of boundaries so that you don't have to feel that emotional reactivity. In career, this might look like not having that conversation with your boss about that raise you know you deserve because of the fear of their reaction. Instead, you may move into a people-pleasing behavior to keep the peace. In business, this might look like softening your boundaries and dealing with subpar work with a subordinate or a contractor simply because you don't want to hurt their feelings and you want to keep the emotional environment calm. And this lack of definition and conditioned fear can become increasingly obvious around conversations with finances. And you might avoid financial conversations with your partner for fear of conflict in the relationship. The aligned expression of the undefined solar plexus is being able to hold emotional boundaries. It's all about boundaries. Being able to speak your truth. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a fear of confrontation. That can be there, but you're also able to step back and allow the emotional person to have their emotions, to feel their feelings and ride their waves without amplifying and going on that ride with them. Instead, it's stepping back, allowing, and then when they have clarity, coming back together and having that final conversation. Either way, you get to face the fear of truth and confrontation, hold your boundaries, and move forward with alignment. And if this is the kind of information that you want more of, Amanda and I have created the Frequency Collective, a school membership community where we use the language of human design, astrology, and the practical application for your career, health, and life. For more information, please check us out in the link in the description below. Part 3, Practical Application. We've discussed the mechanics. We know how this might show up in career, business, and relationship with money. So what do we do with this information? As I've said in the last 2 videos, and I will say in all the videos, this is my favorite part. This is asking the questions that help us dig down deep into the emotions of the center. This is what allows us to decondition the center so that we can move forward with alignment. For each of these centers, there are questions that you can ask and you can sit with. Now, when I say sit with, I mean embody. Ask the question, sit with it, notice what you feel in your body. We're gonna go through an example of this, but first, let's go through those questions. For the Ajna Center, your questions are, am I trying to convince myself or others that I am certain? Am I being overly fixed with my opinions or ideas to feel or project certainty? For the Undefined Spleen Center, your questions are, Am I holding on to a relationship, a job, a place, or something that just really isn't good for me? Am I making decisions based on fear? Am I avoiding confronting my fear or fears? For the undefined solar plexus, your questions are, am I avoiding truth and confrontation? Am I afraid? Am I avoiding the consequences of upsetting others? In this example, I'm going to show you exactly what I do and what I do with my clients to work through these centers. The first step in deconditioning is to look at each of the centers. Find where you have no definition. Now, if you have definition in these centers, you can continue to watch and understand the experience that others go through. And this is also part of a 5-part series where we are going through each of the undefined centers. Once you find your center, we'll move to step 2. Find the questions of those centers. And then step 3, we're going to sit with the question and do the embodiment practice and exercise. For this example, we're going to use the undefined solar plexus because that's what I have and I relate to it. Also, it's a 50-50 chance that you have definition or not. My favorite question for this one is, am I avoiding truth and confrontation? Especially the confrontation part. So what we'll do is I'm going to close my eyes. You can do this open or closed. This is just how I practice. And I'm going to ask myself that question, and you can do it in your head or out loud. Am I avoiding truth or confrontation? And I notice what I feel in my body. And I actually feel this in my ears as a pressure and in my head. There's no right or wrong way to feel it. Whatever it is, it is. And I'm just going to breathe into it. On the breath in through the nose, easy inhale, long, slow exhale through the mouth. We're changing the vagal tone, which is putting us into rest and digest with those long, slow exhales through the mouth. And I'm just going to continue to breathe and feel that in my body. Asking myself, can I let this go? This fear of confrontation. I notice it moving into my neck and into my chest, my shoulders. And just allowing on the breath in, releasing on the breath out, long, slow exhales. Yeah, I can let this go. And as I do, I watch it move through my body and I feel it releasing. Laughing, coughing, yawning, sneezing, crying is all emotional release. The body knows better than the mind, so just let it go. Whatever comes up, release it. And as you practice these questions, this deconditioning, your nervous system becomes more resilient at being less triggered and being able to move through life with complete and total alignment, especially when it comes to career, business, and your relationship with money. You've made it all the way to the end, so obviously you're my people. Please drop a fear emoji in the comments below to let me know that you've made it. And like, comment, subscribe, and share with any and everyone you know who's in their human design experiment. We need this information to get out there, especially the practical application. And if that practical application speaks to you, please check out our Frequency Collective link in the description below. And if you want to continue on with this 5-part series, click this link here. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.